Hello everyone, this is Reporters, the program that brings you stories from France 24's best journalists around the world. I'm Jeannie Gardula. There are over 100,000 US and NATO-led troops stationed in Afghanistan fighting a growing insurgency led by the Taliban. 3,000 of those soldiers are French. More than half of them are deployed in the remote Kapisa Valley, northeast of Kabul. France 24 correspondents Menget and Johan Bodin spent close to 2 weeks traveling with the 3rd Marine Infantry Regiment in Afghanistan. They followed the French Marines as they wandered and waited and fought. Menget will be telling us about that experience in just a few minutes' time, but first, here's his special report.
5:15 a.m., the village of Maktab, the gateway to the Afghania Valley. 4-band Section 4 of the 3rd Marine Infantry Regiment emerges from its armoured vehicles. Day is broken, the village still sleeps, which suits these men well, as they can go about their business quickly and discreetly. This is Bogo, a sharpshooter armed with a precision rifle known as the FRF-2, which dates from the Algerian War. The French army has yet to improve on it. The section has been patrolling this valley for 5 months, but the insurgents still know it better.
The mission relies on Genie reconnaissance intel about this axis that goes through the valley. We're going to have to protect it on the right between the wadi and the road.
The wadi is the riverbed they're going to follow, forever on guard.
When you disengage and return to base, you have to turn your back on them, probably by the edge of this scrubland here. That's where a lot of the harrying comes from RPGs.
He's never far from the lieutenant. In the section he's known as GG. He's the youngest, the radio operator. He's the link between the section and Operation Command. The section advances swiftly. It's 5 kilometres to the other end of the valley. But they stop regularly to observe the locals who are just beginning to stir. The men observe, but they also know they too are being watched. The inhabitants of the valley are used to the soldiers' presence, but they're also in contact with the insurgents. The armoury is heavy, prepared for battle. Each soldier carries a pack weighing 30 kilos with ammunition and food supplies. They never know exactly what's going to happen. They're better having too much than too little. In the skies, the soldiers are backed up and fed intelligence by drones, those almost invisible unmanned planes, and by helicopters. And on the heights, other sections keep watch.
We're not alone. The other company is up on the heights to see everything that's going on. They're lookouts, in effect. They see everything that's going on. They see everything we can't see.
There are also special forces who have their informants in the village and have known for a few days that Taliban are also preparing.
Attention all units, HCT-19 intel. 50 insurgents preparing an ambush in the valley. Region for the moment not communicated.
On the radio, information becomes more precise. The enemy combatants take their positions, and the Marines acknowledge that Talibans are there in numbers too.
Move a little to the left if you can.
The whole unit is on the alert. The Tigers, French combat helicopters, fly over the area to try and locate the insurgents. But the insurgents too have their network of informants, often farmers, who count the number of French soldiers.
See them over there, staring at us? After we're gone, they'll be informing on us, informing the enemy.
The soldiers cannot afford to let the Taliban steal a march on them. Even if all eventualities are planned for, it looks as if the Taliban trap is working a bit too well. The soldiers themselves begin to feel they are surrounded.
All units, confirmation of the presence of the Taliban in the valley. They've received their orders and are in the process of splitting up in small groups to organize their ambush.
The insurrection leaders have also laid their trap. For the moment, the lieutenant is confident.
If everything's set up, we'll take them down and crush them.
According to the map, the Taliban are deployed over 1 kilometre.
To all units, they've started sending in kids with weapons with people running behind them.
To avoid detection, the Taliban use children to transport weapons. The French can't fire on them. The unit arrives at the end of the valley and there are no men to be seen, only a few children and women.
Positive identification of 4 armed personnel at Echo 4. Everyone 100% in position, ready to fire at first shots.
The soldiers are now close to engagement. The insurgents have surrounded them. 4-Band 4 section have arrived in this zone assigned them by the captain around this small mosque. The men will go no further. Is this low mud wall? The way it begins, Tony adjusts his helmet, and then an unexpected sight. A family throwing furtive glances passes a few meters from the men. 300 meters ahead, behind these walls, stand the rebels.
They say shoot sparingly, so we can run the kids out of here. Then once they're gone, we can bomb.
First gunfire comes from the French cover, high up in the hills.
Le même que tout à l'heure. Feu! Feu! 114... Attends, non. 300...
C'est bon!
Trop tard.
The insurgents will pass rapidly here by the wall.
Ok, touché! Il est tombé! Attention, il y a un mec qui passe. Attention, faites gaffe sur quoi vous tirez là.
The lieutenant reminds his men they have to wait a little longer, wait until the insurgents open fire. Enemy bullets whistle in the distance, and then closer, the unit is under fire.
Okay.
Bullets whistle by the soldiers' heads. The lieutenant takes cover. The wall looks very low. The soldiers have to crawl on the ground to avoid being hit. Meme is considered the bravest in battle and sometimes the most foolhardy. JJ was standing too close to the rocket launcher. His ears are ringing and he's momentarily deaf. The radio must be saved. Bogo brings it to the lieutenant. Once again, Memes raises his head. Straight away, he's targeted. The strike is from an enemy Kalashnikov bullet. It's missed, but not by far. The objective for the section now is no dead and no wounded. Memes calls to his group. Things are not going to plan. Ahead, the insurgents, almost invisible, are still active, with sharp shooting and rocket fire. The first doesn't hit the target. Then the second, a bit closer.
Balancez des fumigènes, fumigènes près des positions ennemies. Baissez la tête, putain.
Another bullet hits the wall.
Ici 4, pour nous là, on n'a pas changé de position. C'est impossible de lever la tête. On subit les tirs là, c'est très chaud pour nous d'essayer de reprendre contact visuel avec Forban 3.
Vu les gros arbres là, il est juste en bas. Il est à 100 mètres, il arrive sur nous.
Ahead, a single sniper is keeping the entire section on guard.
Le Wadi, il est juste derrière le Wadi.
Il est habillé tout en noir.
They have to locate him.
Y a un qui a un fume là.
Ouais, j'en ai un moi.
Vous pouvez essayer de le balancer en direction du Pax. Il est à quelle distance du fumigène le mec? 100 mètres?
Quand à 100 mètres, le comporte
le personnel est à peu près 100 mètres sud-est du fumigène.
Il y a des Apaches.
Like with all battles in Afghanistan, it's the US cavalry with its helicopters that comes to the aid of the infantry and who rid the Marines of the concealed sniper. It's only then the Afghan army arrives, without helmets or flak jackets, but with all smiles. Tony is appreciative of the Afghan effort.
They're good lads, and they're brave. They need a bit more discipline, but they're brave.
In all, the battle lasted just under 2 hours. There's relief all round, there's no more enemy fire, and no casualties on the French side. Only a few kilometres more in a VAB, the infantry's armoured vehicle, and stairway will be just a memory. Whether a good or bad one, it's too soon to say, because the soldiers, even the more gung-ho among them, often get traumatised at a later date. Today's objectives have been attained, bring the soldiers back to base, while the insurgents have lost a lot of men. In a war, a job well done. But on the return to base, it's a day for some R&R. Time for something else, listen to some music, and the best thing after the battle is to cook lunch together. In a Marine infantry section, France and its overseas territories are all represented, and also in the cuisine.
Welcome. Today's nosh is cooked up by the great Comoran chef Abderrahman. On the menu, rice and pasta.
Bon appétit.
Far from the political speeches in Paris, they fight against a clear and present enemy. They have done what's asked of them, while acknowledging that in this war, there are neither winners nor losers.
You usually go to a country and win the war.
And we're not sure to win it.
Nobody's sure, and we did all that today for nothing. The fact you're facing them and you're incapable of doing anything, it's sickening. But we don't have any choice, we have to spare civilians.
Do you feel it's an endless war?
No, personally, I don't think we'll ever get on top of it.
It'll soon be the end of the tour for the 3rd Marine Infantry Regiment. In 2 weeks, Abdou, Memes, Tony, Gégé, the lieutenant, and all of Forband 4 section will be back in Van, in Brittany. Just over 100,000 foreign troops are deployed in the Afghan valleys. 2009 has been the bloodiest year since the beginning of the war for the coalition soldiers, but also for Afghan civilians.
I'm joined now here in the studio by Luca Menget. Luca, you spent 2 weeks with the French Marines in Afghanistan. Did you get the feeling that the French soldiers were expecting it to be so hard on the ground?
No, actually not. What Abdou says at the end of the story, and that during all the previous wars that these soldiers have been fighting, they are used to win the battles. Now they get the sense that they do battles, they fight the insurgents in the mountains of Afghanistan, but they never really win the battles. That's very new for French soldiers. It's also new for American soldiers, even if most of them have been covering Iraq as well and fighting in Iraq. It's a new feeling that you're fighting an enemy that most of the time you don't see. You never see a dead body because they take their bodies after the battle, and you never really win. They know that they are fighting in Afghanistan for years and years, and that whatever are the decisions, political decisions that will be made in the next few months or years, they will fight people, insurgents in those valleys and mountains of Afghanistan, but they will never, on a military level, win the battles. Maybe they will win at the end the fact that Afghanistan could be one day a democracy or something. And that's what they say. They are there in Afghanistan because they're fighting terrorism and they're fighting for democracy. But except of that, they don't really know why they're fighting.
We see in your piece at one point U.S. helicopters fly in and save the French Marines from a concealed sniper. And I know you were telling me that the French really appreciate and count on those U.S. helicopters, even calling them guardian angels.
Of course. You know, for example, this section of the French soldiers, the section Forband 4, they plan to do a party at the end of their mission for the helicopters pilots, the American helicopters pilots, because for all the battles they've been doing since 6 months in Afghanistan. Each time the American helicopters came at the end to help them to fight the insurgents. This is really new for the American army and for the French army. There is a real connection between the guys on the ground and the guys in the air. And it has nothing to do with the political debate with France and America, with all the political debates in NATO. This is something on the ground. They're fighting the same war and they're counting each other on their support.
Now, we're due to any day now have a decision on whether or not the U.S. will send in tens of thousands of more troops to Afghanistan. What kind of effect will that decision have directly on the French troops?
Well, it's another world for them. I mean, they're in bases, military bases in Afghanistan. They're going every day in valleys, small areas of Afghanistan. They're very far from the political debate. They know that they need more troops. They realize that they're fighting in valleys, but that there are thousands of valleys in Afghanistan, and that they need more troops from all over the country, all the countries, to do a proper war. So, of course, they will follow on television Obama's speech, for example, but on the ground, that doesn't change a lot.
All right, Luc Menget, thank you so much for coming in and tell us about your story and about your experience 2 weeks in Afghanistan with the French Marines. Thank you so much for watching Reporters. Be sure to tune in again next week. We'll be back with another great story from one of the dozens of France 24 journalists from around the world. And of course, you can always check out our website for more information. That address, once again, france24.com. Stay with us.